Welcome to another edition of TM3 Impact. Today, I have Easton Smith with Emerald Haus Group at Keller Williams Heritage. Easton, welcome to TM3 Impact.
Thank you so much for having me. Obviously, you know, it's a big honor for anybody to come on the show, so I feel very grateful to be here today. In fact, you know, Tomas, every day is truly the best day of my life. This is contributing to that right now. So thank you.
Let's go. I love it. So Easton, we start real simple. Tell me your San Antonio story, Cliff Note version. How did you come to live in this amazing city, this area?
All right. I'm going to try to keep it very, very brief. So I was flying helicopters in Los Angeles.
Okay.
My family decided it was time to just make a change. And so they wanted to find a new area. They went and auditioned to different cities. I was actually out on a forest fire for the United States Forest Service, flying for a forestry fire. And they decided where to come. I came on a break. I packed them up. I went back on a fire. When I came back, I parked my helicopter, and then I drove right out to this area that we've lived in now for over 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just like that, it was time.
You know, it's funny. People say, what was it that brought you out here? It's never any one thing. It's, you know, basically it's God pointing you in the direction of where your life is supposed to go. Yeah. And you can try to hesitate on that and be shown the bad reasons why it's time to go, or you can go with the flow. And what I've learned in my life is when it's time to go, you go.
You go. Yeah, you go. So go back. I mean, obviously you're I've heard little pieces of your story, right? So you came here. Was it always going to be real estate when you came here? And originally when you first moved?
Yeah, in fact, when I was in my last few months of flying helicopters. So I was a trust. First of all, it's a natural progression, right? Because it's always been real estate. You know, even when we were dancing in ballet companies, we were buying real estate and we had investment properties. And so when we were in Los Angeles, I was a trustee on a number of multi-million-dollar estates. I would sign the contracts for my friends' trusts, and I would work with the realtors. And so I really loved that aspect of it. You know, throughout my career being a ballet dancer, you meet a lot of influential people, donors that are supporting the company. So, we'd stay in Frank Lloyd Wright homes and, beautiful mansions all over the country. And so when I came here, it was just going to be real estate because I had such a passion for it. So I actually studied while I was on the fire in between flights. And then when I got it here, I just took my test.
And you were ready.
I was ready to go. Yeah.
I love it. So 8 years ago, moved here. Now let's go back because we got to talk about. Tell me about your ballet. Tell me about that. Growing up. Where did you grow up?
Yeah.
And how did that all get started? Because it sounded like you made that a career for a while.
It was. Well, listen, I will say this is once you're a dancer, you'll always be a dancer. You will dance through life with the things that you learn in dance. And I can show you how it's applicable to almost everything. So really, I grew up in Indiana, not a very large town, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Okay, but now you're tall. So I would imagine, did everybody say, Easton, are you playing basketball this year?
Yeah.
Were you tall back then? I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I was always above average.
Okay.
But, basketball's serious in Indiana.
It's life.
It was. I grew up watching Bobby Knight throw chairs.
Of course.
Steve Alford and Keith Smart winning, championships.
Yes.
But no, for me, it wasn't, I'll tell you what, it's very simple. I had the choice to go and audition to be on the football team, the baseball team, and the basketball team. But when I went to the ballet studio and I saw the most beautiful girls in the school there, I thought, why do I want to hang out with my guy friends? I want to go over here. Now, it's funny, that didn't last long, but again, It was just an impetus to get me in the right place to make the right decisions for my life.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is in that area in Fort Wayne, we actually had a school with incredible teachers.
For ballet.
Yeah, and there's a lot of dance studios all over. In fact, we've got some good dance studios in San Antonio with some very reputable people.
Yeah.
You would never know. But the thing is in that small town, I came across the people that would give me what I needed to turn this into a career.
And so tell me about that career. So you obviously went to college, and you got to tell a story because you were in college ballet with somebody fairly famous. Well, with probably several.
So this is the thing is by the time I was 13, I was getting scholarships to, any prestigious dance school in the country.
Wow.
Right. And so by the time I was 13, I was doing summer programs. And of course, I wound up in Washington, D.C., right around the time that President Clinton was in office. His daughter, Chelsea, was in class with me.
Wow.
And so what's interesting is during the day, you would have Chelsea come in the studio and take class and her Secret Service. And she was, and I'm sure just a wonderful person.
Yeah.
They were going through a lot at that time.
Yeah.
And so for her to be able to come in and concentrate, Hillary would come into the studio on Parents' Day. The Secret Service would put it on lockdown, but then at night, I would play chess with homeless people in the park. And so it was wonderful because I could see both sides of life.
Yeah.
The incredibly successful and then the people who wanted and needed for more.
Yeah.
And I found camaraderie on both sides of this equation. Beautiful people, different circumstances.
How old were you at that time at that school?
13, 14, 15.
So you were away from home at 13?
So by the time I was 14, I was away from home permanently at a professional ballet school. Yes.
Wow. Okay, so we got to talk about. So my son, I'm thinking about this, and I hope my son listens to this because this is amazing. And so you got to listen to this one. Okay, so I want you to talk about being 14 years old and you're no longer living with your family. You're living in a boarding school? Is it basically like a boarding school? Talk about that.
Different schools will have boarding school elements.
Okay.
But a lot of schools, what you do is you find patrons, donors, people that are willing to put up students so that when, and that's what I did is, in fact, the head admin and the lead school instructor, I lived with them.
Wow. For how long? All the way up to what age?
I mean, I was there for only a couple of years because what you do is then I would go to a school called Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle.
So you left DC, you were there a couple of years in that school. And are you going to high school at the same time or is it kind of like a homeschool type?
You're doing homeschool and GED at that point. Yeah. And same thing with my wife is different because she got her associates by 16. She was working and owned a home in in Copenhagen, dancing for the Royal Danish Ballet by the time she was 16, turning 17.
Wow. So this is a very prodigy-oriented world where they start you off as early as possible.
You don't have a lot of years. The idea is, now we've seen obviously dancers, have incredibly long careers. And we had wonderful careers. They were long. They were not ended by any injuries. They were just decisions that we made at some point. We'd done everything we wanted to do, and it was time to transition to that next phase of life, which was having a family. Because for us, having a family was going to be outside of the art form.
Yeah, and so you go from DC, and then you go to California. Were you in San Francisco?
Yeah, Seattle. Well,
Seattle.
I went from Seattle, and then my first job was in San Francisco. So by the time I was 17, turning 18, then.
Okay.
And you think about this is, when you're 13 going to a school, you're thinking this is taking forever. But by the time you're 17, turning 18, you've got a job. You live away from your family and you're a professional dancer in a major city.
Wow. What was that like knowing that you were getting paid to do that? Like what, as a 17-year-old, when you got your first gig, I'm going to imagine, what did you get paid if you don't mind sharing?
I mean, my first job as an apprentice in San Francisco, I got paid $250 a week.
A week. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had my own place.
Yeah.
We made it work. Obviously, once I got my full contract, you're making substantially more, triple, quadruple that.
Okay.
But, when you're first starting, you're so focused on training all day, every day. And that's where the discipline comes in. And that discipline is what goes from, career to career to careers. You're developing a professional that can acclimate to anything, to please everybody, to create and be innovational in the studio, to look at everybody and to think, how can I make this better? How can I take what they're doing and make it my own? When they're going on stage, they're getting so much applause. How can I command that presence? So you're getting a real world and an immediate response to see what you're doing if what you're doing is paying off or not. So I was always the first person in the studio in the morning.
Wow.
I was always one of the last to leave, and I'd be at the gym before I even went to the studio, and I'd be taking ballet class after the workday. Yeah. And then your time at home is just icing and preparing for the next day because you're literally putting your body through so much physically.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that discipline because it's one of those words. I love Proverbs. I'm a big Proverbs guy, so I love all the talk about discipline and those who hate discipline, are stupid. You know what I mean? It's like, talk about that as going from such a young age to be asked to, at that level and that age, to be asked to do and to train and to practice. Number one, let's go. We got to take one step back. What was motivating you?
For me, it was, look, I'm not going to, I didn't want to get into like the semantics of my childhood. I had a great childhood. We had everything that we needed, but we didn't have a lot materially. Everything else we had in abundance. In fact, when we kind of look at luxury, the Latin word is luxus, and it's, a lot of, excess is the definition. So we had an excess of love. We had an excess of fun. We had all those things, but we didn't have an excess of wealth monetarily. And so for me, it was my way to go out into the world and to relieve my family of anything they may feel like they have to do to put me through college or to do. It was, I can do this. It's time to go. 13, it's time for me to go. I got this.
That's so. How many families were you raised with? How many brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That had to be wild too for them to see their. Are you the middle son? Are you middle?
I am the middle.
You're the middle. So they go, our middle brother just left. He's 13 years old. This would be wild.
This is the thing is they are equally talented and probably even more so in their fields.
In their space, yeah.
I just stuck with mine and continued to do it. And that's where the discipline comes in.
Yeah. So then now let's talk about the discipline, right? Like the discipline to train yourself every day. You're 15, 16, 17. You're now a paid professional at 17, right? What is motivating you, to be that disciplined at that young of an age?
I think it goes back to, I don't want to go back. I need to, succeeding wasn't a question. It was mandatory for me. And so that's what it was. We talked about discipline and this is what's so interesting about ballet. And this is where everything can learn from this one thing. When I went into the studio, my very first day, they taught me a step. It was a plie in first position.
Okay.
I would do that step multiple times every day throughout my long career.
Okay.
The last day that I performed, the very first step I did when I went in to perform was that same plie. It didn't look like the plie that I had when I was a 10-year-old boy.
No.
It had aged. It had matured. It had been done hundreds of thousands of times. And it turned into a very effective way of moving with strength and precision. I could do anything from that position. Jump up, multiple revolutions, right?
Yeah.
Leap off. So the thing is that one step was training us over time slowly to be able to be effective at using it the way that it was intended.
So it's mastery. It comes down to just pure mastery, right? Wouldn't you say? Like it's just dedicating yourself to something at such a high level that you became a master of it.
I've worked with the most influential and prominent coaches in the history of dance in our generation. And so what's interesting is to see all of their thought process and effectiveness in teaching these things. And then you pick and you choose the things that you want and need at different times until you're creating this artist, this art form, this canvas of a body.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same way a painter would go in and create something that they see. You're creating the physical body over many years of experience.
Interesting. Now, I would imagine, I know height is a big deal in ballet, right? Were you taller than?
Yeah, I would be considered to be one of the tallest dancers. I think, Alexander Godunov, probably 6'7". There's a gentleman.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you ever seen the movie The Money Pit?
Yes.
That blonde symphony director?
Yeah.
He was a international superstar dancer.
Oh,
Alexander Godunov, incredible dancer. So at 6'7", he was my idol.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wasn't going to be a Baryshnikov.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing.
Because they're shorter, or because they're shorter,
well,
or
first of all, Baryshnikov's not only short, he's just a virtuoso.
Okay.
He's the Michael Jordan of ballet, and then some. It's unbelievable. Rudolf Nureyev. But for me, I knew that my job was going to be different than what Baryshnikov's job would be. And I'm not in any way putting myself in the same category. I'm just saying you have to know your strengths and play to your strengths.
And then in the lane where you're going to fit in that industry, I would imagine too, right?
I was a tall guy. What I did best was I would dance with women effortlessly, pick them up, throw them, spin them, flip them, turn them, and all without even looking like anything is taking any type of physical stress. So a director sometimes will have a tall girl and she may not have a partner. So I was almost in some ways, to these girls, the thing that made their careers go.
Yeah.
Because I was
you could actually be next to them and not look short because they have to have somebody around their height or taller, but I would imagine, right?
But I'd have to be doing leading roles. Right?
Gotcha.
So I had to be proficient enough to be able to dance and do everything on my own so I could earn the ability to lift them and partner them and make them glide across stage.
Yeah, that's so cool. Now talk about Broadway, because I know you end up going to Broadway. You were on you had a play there. You had a position there. And then it was Broadway before you met your wife or after?
It was just after.
Just after, okay.
And so I want to say this really quickly. When I had my first job when I was 17, turning 18, the first time I did the professional show, my director said, "Easton, you're going to learn every part. You're going to learn every part in the studio. You're going to stay here all day. Everybody's part, you're supposed to know those parts."
At 17.
17. And so what's interesting is of course, I always loved learning the leading parts. Yeah. And the hope would be is somebody could go out and you could step into their role, right? And so I'm working for a very renowned director at the time, Michael Smuin, incredible person, director of San Francisco Ballet, did Broadway musicals, did some movie stuff. And so we're sitting there on stage doing warm-up before the show starts. You warm up on stage and all of a sudden this beautiful girl comes running in from the back. And I recognize her because she's the lead male dancer's fiance. And she goes and she talks to him and we're all kind of wondering. And then the director says, "Okay, start the music." And we start doing the combination to warm up. And the director walks over to me while the music is playing and goes, "Okay, so-and-so is out and you're on." And it was the lead male part.
Wow.
And here I am.
17
years old. And my counterpart is the director's associate director. Like it is the prima ballerina of the company. One, you do not want to let down because you will let down not only the audience and the director and you'll let down everybody all at once.
Wow. When was the show? How long did you have to let it sink in and then do the show? How long?
An hour.
An hour.
Yeah, an hour. An hour.
Get out of here.
So
I got to know, nervous wise, what are you feeling when he said you're the lead?
I'm going to do this.
You were confident.
No, not there was no, look, that's always going to want to be there.
Yeah.
But this is your opportunity. This is something that dancers will wait years and years and years to have. And I have it on my very first show, my very first rep. And that means that from that point forward, that's mine to lose.
Yeah.
So then you take that and you make sure you don't lose that.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
You're the guy.
You can handle everything.
That's a Brady moment.
Yeah.
That was a Brady moment. I mean, that's wild. What was it like? I'm sure you killed it. You did amazing, right?
I had an incredible show. In fact, my previous director of my school, he was there and he had no idea that it just wasn't my part. And he was also the director of the school for that director when they were at San Francisco Ballet. So these are people who know the business.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Yeah. They're very integral part of it. Again, I'm sitting there I'm just thinking, I'm going back to myself as a 17-year-old. I'm just struggling here, Easton, because I'm thinking at 17, bro, I was in a whole different place. But it sounds like this was where you were meant to be.
I mean,
that's where you were supposed to be.
As I look back in hindsight, it was all calculated by something far larger than myself.
Yeah. And
I thought it was me. I was just going along for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, so now now remind me, you met your wife after that or before you went to New York?
As I left that company, there was another director in San Jose, and he had a tall girl come from Royal Danish Ballet. Again, the very prestigious company, Royal Danish Ballet. My wife had been there for 7 years. She came to Ballet San Jose after she finished the Met season with the international acclaimed American Ballet Theater. Okay. I mean, this girl at this age, at 23, she could pick and choose what she wanted to do.
Okay.
Just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so I walked into the studio to kind of take class and audition with the director. And there's this, 5'10", beautiful, blonde, tall ballerina.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's my wife. And then I was like, well, hold on a second, Easton. Like that, she clearly she's too good for you, right? And then I was
love it.
then I was like, no, that's
How
it.
old were you at the time?
I was 27.
So 27. Okay, got it. And you walk in, you're like, this is it. This is
it.
one.
Yeah.
I love it.
I've been waiting for her since my mom showed me the movie Somewhere in Time when I was 5.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for that moment and to feel that way.
Yeah.
And there it was.
Interesting. And now you hadn't talked to her. You just saw her.
I just saw her.
Okay. So tell me, first conversation. I remember the first conversation I ever had with my wife. My wife and I be married 25 years in December. It's a badge. It's an honor. It's like the best thing ever, right? It's amazing. I remember our first conversation. How did that first conversation go?
Well, I was a blathering idiot. I was just trying to be cool. And at that time I thought I was cool. I had a lifestyle that, I'd done good stuff and, here I was. And I was a great partner. And, I needed to humble myself a little bit, if I'm going to be honest. But when we'd worked together, 4 weeks until we were engaged.
Yeah.
Right. So we moved quickly.
Yeah.
And
because she knew too, probably.
I mean, once I saw her, we weren't out of each other's sight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart man.
I remember, this is the thing is we went to the same school called Pacific Northwest for a summer. I remember her when she was 14. I was 17. I remember partnering her, but I didn't think anything of it because at that point I was looking at the company girls thinking, these are the people that I want to, be in touch with.
Yeah.
But the most incredible thing is from the moment that we got engaged and got married, life just started happening faster and better than it ever had. It was unbelievable. I'm going to tell you, I had a great career up until that moment, but I wasn't going to go much further. I needed her.
Interesting. Yeah. And why is that? You needed a partner? You needed someone to dance with, to be paired with?
Tomas, at that point in my life, I had gone through kind of being slightly agnostic. Okay. Then to becoming Buddhist. And then my wife said, well, listen, if we're going to get married, I'd like to raise the kids in my religion. I said, well, go ahead and take me to that so I can see what that's all about. Yeah. And she took me. And when I sat down, my life changed. And when I say changed, it wasn't a small change. It was immediate.
Wow.
It was noticeable to everybody around me.
Yeah.
And from that point, my life rocket shipped.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to Broadway together. We raised funds together, saving on tours, bought houses, created roles, lived out roles that we never dreamed that we could do with people setting that's were the original cast from, George. Our careers and our lives were just, I truly believe, and I said this to you before, is every day is the best day of my life. Yeah. I can say that in all honesty because I wake up next to her.
Yeah.
I have those beautiful children. I've got a career that I've only dreamt of. Yeah. And it all started by sitting down in that church with her that one day.
Yeah, I love that.
It was cool.
I can't wait for her to hear this too, because I think I'm a big believer is that who you marry matters. Okay, who you marry matters, and I tell this to people that work for me or people when I go out and speak to high schools or go speak to colleges. It's like your partner can make or break you. You know what I mean? And so when you hear that who you marry matters, what immediately comes to your mind?
What it comes to mind is I've got a lot of friends who've gone through a lot of relationship trauma and stress. If you don't know, then it is clearly not the right choice.
Yeah.
If you're not head over, because it's going to be hard even when you're head over heels.
That's true.
Which I am, and I know you are to this day. Yep. So there's always going to be times that you have to sit and talk about things that are serious, schools that you want your kids in, financial, provisions on how to make your future even more abundant. So doing that with the person that you, without a doubt, love, it's the most important thing. Yeah. If there's a question, it's probably not the right thing.
Yeah, if you're hesitating.
Yeah.
That's a hot tip for all the young people out there. If you're fighting all the time, it's probably not the one. I mean,
I think people invest a lot of time in something. They feel like, well, I've invested this much time.
Yes.
That will go away quickly. Look, 4 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks.
The best investment I ever made.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember when I asked my wife to get married, we literally, our engagement was 3 months. It was like September. I asked her, and we were married in December.
You get engaged to get married.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people are like, well, they're going to wait. You don't get engaged to have the perfect venue or to have the right amount of people. Like we look, as much as we've been on stage and performed for thousands and thousands of people, at our wedding, we wanted 5 people.
Oh, that's cool.
We didn't want it to be a big show. We wanted it to be something that we didn't share on a platform that seemed like people were watching us.
Yeah, that's cool. And you and being on stages your whole life too, I would imagine as well. Now we got it. I mean, this is so interesting, and I love that you shared this just journey, right? Of going from ballet school to where now you're married. You and your wife are traveling. How many kids do you have now?
We have 2 boys.
2 boys.
Yeah.
What ages?
8 and 10.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best.
It is.
What are your boys' names?
It's Jackson and Eli.
Okay.
And she came up with both names.
Love it.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, is sometimes I see husbands like, I want this name and I want that name. And if you did that, that's all cool and stuff. But I'm going to tell you right now, well, my wife, her decision, that's the most important decision.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And I'm not saying she's right on everything, but she is.
Yeah.
But it's a decision we make together. So she came up with the most wonderful names.
Yeah. And what's your wife's name?
Haley.
Haley. That's super cool. I love hearing that. Now, I can't wait to meet your wife because I know that I'm going to get the other side of the story.
Oh, hers
where you walked in. I can't wait to hear
She's like, who's this loser? No.
I can't wait to hear that. That's going to be a great story.
But tell me, you know what's crazy is she actually went to one of our girlfriend's house. And when she first walked in, before we were even dating, she goes, I really want to live here with Easton.
Wow.
She has this, it's unbelievable.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I would imagine too, that first church service that you went to, where were y'all in New York or were you?
It was in San Jose.
In San Jose.
San Jose.
First, I can imagine, did you grow up going to church?
I did. I grew up going to church.
Yeah.
You know, the thing was I prayed for a lot of things. I saw a lot of horrible things. I wasn't able to make sense of what was happening if everything was supposed to be a certain way.
Okay.
So I kind of moved away from it. And then one night, I'm going to tell you this, I always knew that I would turn back if something just horrible happened. If I was dying in a car crash, I'd say, all right, I'm ready, God, let's do this. I get it now. So I always knew in the back of my mind. So I wasn't really I was waiting. And one night I really did cry out and I said, if I don't find somebody the next day, then, this isn't going to continue on. And the next day I walked out of the studio at 5:00 and like nothing had changed. And then I heard this voice call out my name. And my friend was there. He said, Easton, I'm going to go to a Buddhist meeting. Would you like to come? And I thought, thank you, God. I can go and I can do this. And so then I was Buddhist for a while and I loved it. For me, there were things missing. And when Haley sat me down in that church and they said the Lord's Prayer, I looked at her with tears in my eyes because he says, pray in this manner. He doesn't say this verbatim. He says, pray in this manner.
Yeah.
I heard the manner in which it was to be prayed. I didn't hear the words. I understood the spiritual significance of what that prayer meant. And I welled up with emotion and tears. And I said, I've been looking for this my whole life.
Wow.
And the fact that I got to do that with her.
Yeah.
And so we read the Bible lesson together almost every single day.
Love it.
We talk about,
I love it.
It's truly a partnership of all time.
Who you marry matters. It's so important. Now, let's talk about where does the helicopters get involved and where does Kim Kardashian and where do all these LA stars come in? We got to talk about how does the helicopter even come into play?
So you're sitting there, we're doing Dirty Dancing on tour and one of our best girlfriends, she meets a gentleman in LA. His name is Ryan Cavanaugh. He's the owner, founder, and CEO of Relativity Media. Okay. So we come out, we visit them. Ryan and I become brothers almost immediately. To this day, I love him so much. We just got back from Malibu. We were staying with him in this last summer. And everything's an adventure when you're with Ryan. Okay. Well, because he was one of Forbes' youngest billionaires. Okay. And so here, this guy, when I meet him, he's like, in his, early 30s, and he's Forbes' youngest. So we have a lot of fun. Yeah. And so we go flying, and then I'm in Salt Lake City performing. Haley and I are lead dancers of Ballet West out there, and I get this phone call today from his wife, our girlfriend, and she goes, Easton, do you want to learn how to fly a helicopter? And I said, well, yeah. I mean, you guys are in LA. I'm here. We don't have the means in any way or capacity to do this. She goes, well, that's okay. Ryan will take care of it. Yeah. Ryan will help you out. And so basically, I get flown out every weekend. There's a helicopter at LAX spinning ready for me to go. And it's not like a chintzy little helicopter. Like it's a legitimate turbine, super nice, 2 private pilots.
Yeah.
And they teach me how to fly while I'm dancing. Wow. So at the end of that season, I get a phone call from Ryan. He's like, hey, Easton, if I start a helicopter company, would you help run it? I thought, well, I'm 34. I'm a has-been. And I wasn't a has-been. That's so, but in ballet, you're trying. You keep looking at people trying to come in and jock for your position.
Yeah,
and you're competitive. And at some point, you're just thinking, I want to go out at the top.
Yeah,
I don't want to go down the tubes. I really want to go out with people going, why are you leaving now? Like you've got
or being hurt.
Yeah, yeah. But for us, our last 8 years, there was not a single injury.
That's
so
beautiful.
I was in a place where sustaining, and we're even performing next month. So injury is not a part.
You're still performing?
Well, so we do Bras for a Cause in New Braunfels every year.
I know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll go and we'll do like the opening act for that.
Get out. That's so cool.
And then obviously we choreographed the Nutcracker in San Antonio. So Ballet San Antonio does the version that my wife and I set for them 7 years ago. They perform it at the Tobin every year. And that's our version. We went in, we coached the dancers, we trained them. And they do our version still to this day.
That's so cool.
And those are things I get to share with my wife, right? Those moments. So basically, you know, I got my license and he started a helicopter company. We grew from 1 helicopter to 6. Now they're even crazier. You know, we went from private executive flights to the movie stars and influential business figures. And when I say this, I'm saying, Tomas, I'm saying everybody.
Yeah.
I had
who's who of Hollywood you flew for?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So I again, I'm thinking about this from a standpoint of you go from super disciplined world of ballet, training every single day, right? And now you're starting a helicopter business. Like, talk about the shift in just, you know, brain power. Just okay, I'm shifting over here to do this because I've heard that flying a helicopter is way harder than flying a plane.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that fixed wing pilots are idiots and helicopter pilots are geniuses because that's like the joke. And then they
I don't even know that joke.
Yeah,
but
and they would say the opposite, like you helicopter guys are idiots, and so. And it's a lot of fun when you're doing it. But, you know, this is the thing is the amount of discipline it takes to fly a helicopter, it's paramount. Yeah. You're talking about your life, the lives of the people under you on the ground, and the lives of the people in the helicopter with you. Yeah. And so your need to know as much as humanly possible about that aircraft, and every single one of them is slightly different. So they'll have the EPs, emergency procedures. Okay. I mean, if you're in one helicopter and it spins clockwise and the other one that you fly in the same day spins counterclockwise, your input is almost opposite. And so you need to understand what ship you're in to be able to fly it, as well as the emergency procedures that come along with that specific aircraft. Interesting. And it's a lot. It's a lot of knowledge. Yeah. And I would fly 3-4 different helicopters a day. Wow. Yachts, yacht land. So this is the great thing for me is I was landing on yachts. Okay. I was landing on skyscrapers. I was landing on private helipads with low visibility, secret agent style stuff. Yeah. I had an incredible career in the helicopter, and I ultimately ended up becoming long line carded, which means I could have a 150-foot long line on my helicopter with a water bucket and working as well with the US, for the Forest Service. Yeah. Wow. Which is incredibly, it's a completely different thing. Yeah. You're going from this executive corporate leather seats with like Bentley diamonds and, in the interior to like a more hollowed out, open door, fire blasting through everything. Yeah. But the challenge was so wonderful in all of those. In fact, my favorite thing is landing in tight spaces in yachts. Yeah. I mean, those are so much fun because it's like, I was on the Shaw's of Sunset landing on the yacht for one of their shows. Yeah. So it's like all eyes are on you. So it's like a little performance. Yeah. Well, it's like being on stage again. You got to hit that spot. Got to hit it. Yeah, that's for sure. You got to hit that spot. Okay. So again, I can't imagine. And immediately when we started talking, I thought about Kobe. I thought about Kobe and I thought about the fact that he is not here. And I see The Last Dance. I watched The Last Dance again with my son the other day, and it was the one that was dedicated to Kobe, the one that we actually turned on. Yeah.
And I think about like, man, Kobe should still be here. Like, and how many flights do you think you did? And if you were to add them all up, Easton, how many flights do you think you probably performed? You know, drop off, take off, everything.
I mean, we did thousands.
Thousands in a year or total?
I'd say in total, but this is the thing is it's a very unique thing.
Yeah.
You have to have so much in order for this to be a part of your life, because flying it's like the difference between flying in a Cessna versus a G5, right? There's a lot of abundance, excess, luxury that comes with that thought. Right?
Yeah,
You have to have an excess of wealth, disposable almost, because even for an hour of flight time on one of our helicopters, and it was a minimum of an hour,
Okay.
$3,600.
Okay.
And that would be for one of our more modest ships,
Okay.
single engine. And so, not a lot of people have that. I know that some of, my friends, my clients, one of them had a $10 million piece of land that was our landing zone, right? They had their $30 million house here.
Yeah.
And then they had secured the $10 million lot next to them to
Just
be
to
able to have a landing zone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so, and so I guess at the end of the day is you're doing a lot, but it never allows you to start forgetting about the protocol that you need to put in place to keep everybody safe at all times.
Yeah.
Now, in the LA basin there, we all fly in that area.
Yeah.
We all know.
I'm sure you know that route that he was on.
You cross over at Van Nuys at 1,300 feet in midfield.
Yeah.
We all know that route.
Yeah.
I've landed people at Van Nuys, put them in cars and sent them home, and they weren't too happy with me.
Yeah.
The day that Kobe passed away, I did receive a text from a client who thanked me for disrupting the flight to where we were supposed to go and ending it early so we could get in cars and go. It's an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, and nobody was there with the pilot at the time.
Yeah.
He was going through a lot. There's nothing that is, I think, lost on that situation. But there's no reason to this day that these people shouldn't have landed safely.
Yeah.
And been alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
sad.
We know.
It's
Look,
so
we know
sad.
that we know the people. We know the organization that did it. I know Kobe used to fly with the people who would pick me up in the helicopter. I know Kobe would fly with my instructors.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if somebody was, very, wanting to get there. It doesn't matter. There's no circumstance that this should have happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's so sad. It's so sad. And I would imagine as soon as it happened, were you flying at the time? Well, you were already here.
No, I was
You were
here.
here.
But listen, what I did is I was able to go through, listen to the audio, understand you can recount the steps.
Okay.
You can see the panic. You can see the mistakes. It's
Okay.
very easy. We all look as pilots. It's the same thing in ballet. I would learn from the best in the studio, and I would learn from the worst in the studio.
Smart.
Same thing with pilots. You're going to learn from everybody. And that's a mistake that I guarantee and I hope we won't see for a long time.
Oh gosh, yes. Especially regardless of who it is, right? Regardless of who it is, whether it's Kobe or anybody, right?
I always joked with my friends. I said, listen, if I ever go down in a helicopter, I'm going to be the other guy.
Yeah.
Do you remember the pilot's name?
No.
Okay.
No.
That would have been me. That would have been me.
Right.
So
right, which is it's almost
I never wanted to be that guy.
No, for sure. So how many times did you have to tell a client we're not flying?
Oh, look, as the season progresses and the inversion comes in, it's on a regular basis.
It's a regular basis. Yeah.
And you've got some people that are a little bit more hesitant, some people that are completely understanding, and that's just a natural unfoldment of the way people are.
Yeah, I could imagine. Okay, so how long did you fly for?
When I was in LA, I must have flown for about 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I still fly. Well, I haven't flown for a while.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be getting back in the pilot seat in this next week.
With helicopters or planes? Which one?
Helicopters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I like
cool.
helicopters. We already talked about plane drivers.
Right.
Idiots,
Yeah.
so
I mean, come on. Who wants to fly a plane? You can fly a helicopter. It's cooler. You can land on a yacht. You can't do that on a plane.
You can't do that on a plane. You need a long yacht.
Aircraft
carrier.
Seriously.
I don't have any friends with aircraft carriers currently. So
not yet, right? But okay, so here's my thinking, right? Like I'm thinking you're in LA, you're married at the time, you're flying these helicopters all over. The lifestyle, talk about the helicopter pilot lifestyle with kids and a wife and never mind the fact that you're in LA. Talk about that lifestyle.
Well, I mean, listen, I would again, I would be gone before they were even awake, and I'd be home after they were asleep. And then if you get a call like in 2:00 in the morning from somebody who needs to pick up somebody from the airport, then you go and you take care of business. The nice thing for me is as much as I was a pilot, I was also one of Ryan's closest friends. And so the cool thing for me is it was and still is an incredible life.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak to the things that would happen on a daily basis as far as just the people that we would see, the people to be over for breakfast, the people would be flying, but those lives they're 24/7. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, those meetings are late. I mean, I remember taking people to a meeting at the Beverly Hilton at, again, midnight, 2:00 in the morning, and then trying to fly back, going to concerts and flying back. We would go to concerts with some of Ryan's closest friends. If you kind of look up who were his best men at his wedding in Capri, those types of people, we'd all go out to the concert, then we'd fly back
and jump in the helicopter and fly out. Yeah.
Sometimes a car would have been faster or easier, but there's a helicopter right there.
It's cooler.
We're going to fly that. Yeah.
It's much cooler. Yeah. I mean, come on. I know in Austin right now, that's becoming a really big thing right now. I know of several people that are getting into that world and purchasing them. Like, what would a helicopter cost? I mean, I have no clue. Are helicopters cheaper than planes?
No. Well, listen, if I wanted to go out and fly like a single engine plane today, I could probably find something around just above $100,000.
Okay.
There's not going to be any helicopter you can buy for that price.
So they're more expensive.
Once you start getting into turbine engines, like you're spending minimally $500 for something, but really you want to be closer to $1 million plus. I know that when we purchased a helicopter, it was like 3.5 million, and then you had to put the avionics in it separately, which would be another, 1.5.
Yeah.
We would buy, but see, this thing is, so a part of that life was, you kind of talk about what was that life like? Well, it was also negotiating flight time. We'd be calling around, I'd be trying to put together deals, $15 million helicopter package deals, as far as acquiring aircraft, working with the attorneys. And that's why I love contracts and real estate so much, is because we used to craft these really wonderful deals with helicopters. And we'd work with the attorneys on either side.
Yeah.
It makes our real estate contracts pretty manageable.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
these
easy.
Forms. Yeah.
At that point.
And so it went to Excel sheets, it went to flight training, but the cool thing is the discipline was always there, because at the end of the day, it was just as basic as ever. I walk up to the helicopter, I check out everything, I make sure that it's flight ready. I get in there and there's a procedure, the same way there was in ballet class: pliés, tendus, dégagés, rondejambes, fondus, same thing. Gas, ignition, spool it up, checking all the movement of everything. Flight tower, what's going on, what's the weather, what's the ATIS, call it in, what are we doing? So it was a very disciplined and regimented activity, and it has to be to make sure that you're being as safe as possible. So it's funny, it's like I was dancing in the helicopter. That's what it was. At this point, I'm just dancing through life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love that. So most fun celebrity moment flying. You have thousands of them.
You can't
pick one.
Yeah, you can't. I can say, look, I'm going to tell you right now. When I was young, there was a Macy's passport show. It's a runway show that would happen in San Francisco, and I remember meeting a lot of incredible people at that time. Because even when I was just a dancer, I still got to meet so many people.
Yeah.
And at one moment, Cindy Crawford was in the show, and I remember seeing her from afar. I didn't get to see her up close. Lil Kim was there. Magic Johnson was there. All these people were there, but I didn't get a chance to meet Cindy Crawford. And so this one day when I went to this beautiful ranch to pick up Cindy Crawford, I got to see Cindy Crawford up close and personal. And she was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
An incredible person.
Yeah.
What I noticed is there's always something about these people. They have something so special that when you're, close to them, like you get to see what that is. And the first time I experienced that was Robin Williams came to our dance show. And Robin Williams, it was it's so cool. So I was about to leave stage, and whenever you hear the stage door open, you hear kind of like the rumblings of the audience, and then it closes. It's a big still door. And this time I heard the audience, and as it closed and it got quieter, there was this low tone that kind of moved across the floor. It was a voice. Huh. And it kind of grabbed onto your shoulders and it turned you around, and Robin Williams is standing, on the other side of stage, but you could feel him from further away. And he started out just complimenting everybody. It was a wonderful show. Thank you so much. I just, he says a couple small jokes and you laugh. And before you know it, the energy started changing. And everybody was infected with his hilarity. Yeah. And everybody was on his train.
I love it.
It was just incredible. And Steven Tyler would come over to the house, or he'd show up in Hawaii when we were there. And a similar attribute. Yeah. When he wanted to calm it down, he would calm it down, and he wanted to spin it up, he'd spin it up. And and the same thing, Kate Winslet came to a Broadway show, and it's funny, I've seen her, I didn't put too much thought into it, but then she was there was something so impactful and so special and so beautiful. And so what I would say is the most interesting thing was seeing everybody and seeing what that thing was within them. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I got to see everybody. I mean, it really was. The best men at Ryan's wedding were Leo, Bradley, Jerry. Yeah. And so, I mean, we weren't at a loss for seeing the people in,
like the stars of stars. These are the stars of stars. Yeah.
And it's nothing to them. It was something to me because I grew up. I mean, I remember we were at Nobu and Don Rickles came up to the table. Wow. And he's kind of a pessimistic, at the time, and he was the most incredible gentleman you'd ever seen. Yeah. Class, sophistication, eloquently speaking. I mean, it was just so, he was Hollywood royalty. Yeah.
No, for sure.
And I think the thing is, seeing this on such a large scale all the time, it was always just so fun to watch. But then what was great was to see my friend Ryan outside of that as just my best friend.
He's your buddy. Yeah.
We play some video games, we hang out, we talk about the deals that he's going on. The biggest thing is I learned about business when it came to Ryan, right? There was such an abundance of everything there, right? We, on the weekends, you could be racing hypercars and, the Palm Raceway out there in the desert. You could be flying out to Hawaii. It was always so much. But there's also just the human aspect of it all where we're all going through so much. Yeah. We're all trying our best. But business-wise, listening to him make hundreds of millions of dollars worth of deals and, that's when I gained my business sense.
You started seeing how the game was played.
Started seeing how to do this. Yeah. He'd be on phone calls with Steven Mnuchin and Ron. I mean, everybody making these deals. And so watching him create this thing that he did is how I learned. He's truly my brother and my mentor when it comes to success in life as far as, businesses and but also relationships, because he's a relationship guy.
I mean, and I bet you would probably say, what's the number one part of his success? Is that probably the biggest piece to his success?
His success, he has the ability to reinvent and innovate. He's a disruptor by nature. Some people have different things, right? Yep. Some people have created some systems that, gets adopted. And, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Relativity was the first movie studio to give Netflix a contract for their streaming deal. So he would go on and be, do keynote speeches all over the world, created great relationships in China and different countries. And I mean, he'd be taking meetings with, Carlos Slim. I mean, it was big.
It's big. That's cool.
It was super big.
Now, when you see that world, we were on our call the other day, and I was sitting there, and I was like, gosh, you see that world. I got a chance recently to go to a couples retreat, and Grant Cardone was there, and his wife was there, and you get around people that are they larger than life, very, very successful billionaires, and you come away with this essence of I don't know for you. I'm just curious, but I came away with this essence of like. It didn't feel so untouchable. I know that sounds bad. I know that may sound bad, but it almost felt like there's something still so human and ordinary, and like, man, he puts his pants on just like me. You know what I mean? Like, So with that setup, I'm curious for you. You've probably met. There's only 1,000 billionaires. I don't know if you know that, but there's only 1,000 billionaires in the world. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
To think about that, right? You probably met in person. I would probably venture to say 200-300 of them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not that many, but I've seen.
But 100.
Yeah.
Let's say 100, right? And of all of that, it's saying 100 billionaires that you've flown or you just had a chance to be in the room with. I'm curious, what is the overall takeaway from them that you've met?
Some of them have gone through great lengths to be able to create this position in their life, their dominance. Some have pushed away families. Some have been able to watch their families flourish, but none of them are without their own personal struggles and strife.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
not all rainbows and unicorns.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's a hard life. And this is the thing is when you start adding those zeros, you can expect the same amount of potentially false relationships.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's good. The more zeros, the more false relationships.
You have the potential.
That's so true.
You got to find those people who you can trust.
Yeah.
It's harder for them. They have to go through a longer process of figuring out who they can trust, and it can cost them millions in the interim.
Yeah. That would be so hard because I'm such a I'm so trusting. You know what I mean? I'm an optimist by nature. I can't imagine. But you probably build that over time. I would imagine the scars that are left from situations. Imagine that builds up. It's not like all of a sudden, these people don't go from 100 million to a billion. It's like it's a process. I mean, unless you're Zuckerberg or some of these other guys.
Well, but remember too, it ebbs and flows with them too.
Right.
Right. In some ways.
Yeah.
And I think that look, you can be this many billions today, this many billions tomorrow, then this many billions on the following day. Obviously not that quickly, but I think that's when you start finding for me with Ryan, I've never needed anything from this friendship except for it to be a friend and to have a friend. I could call him today, and if I needed him to drive a 1985 Ford Tempo out here on, with no air conditioning, he would drive it out for me tomorrow.
Yeah.
He would have it out. Maybe he wouldn't, but he'd have somebody out. It'd be out here tomorrow.
He'd figure it out.
He would.
Yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day is they're always going to have the people that they can know, trust, and love.
Yeah.
I see them just going through a lot of people, to add the new ones past that point of success.
True. Yeah. Did you ever work with Elon? Did you ever have any interaction with Elon Musk?
No, we didn't. Ryan was so movie oriented, and now look, Ryan's done incredible things now. I think he's, the owner of Triller. I think they've gone public, or they were going to go public. He has his own podcast called Failure, which he interviews Nigel Lithgow, like incredible people. Yeah. Just produced another. It's funny, movies keep coming to him somehow. So when we were out there last time, we were looking at this new movie that he just created, and getting to see it before anybody else did. And they broke records when they released it. Again, he went and got like 5 million views in 24 hours.
Wow.
For the trailer alone.
Wow.
So the thing is
Did you say the name of the movie yet? Or no?
It's Skill House.
Okay.
You can look it up. You can see Skill House. Bryce Hall is in it.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is he just created another new way of promoting something that nobody had done before.
That's cool.
And that's what he does.
Yeah.
And so I think for us is we've got to completely, it's always like, hey, look, you're not reinventing the wheel, but we are reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're for ourselves, the wheel that works.
Right.
What is our place?
And how have you taken all of this to full circle into real estate?
It's super simple. I mean, listen, I from the time I was young, I've been in the nicest homes with the most incredible people. There's a gentleman who created stem cell research, Irv Weissman, and we stayed in his Francis Ford Coppola house in Montana when we were on tour. Wow. And this is the most incredible and gracious person, him and his wife, Allie, who have passed away by now. When we were in San Francisco, the gentleman who founded the University of Phoenix, he had this incredible house in Pac Heights. Yeah. And it was just this mansion with this ballroom and his wonderful wife, Paula Murphy. So, I've been around luxury real estate since I can imagine, right? I've been exposed to the arts and the finer things of life. Ballet is not something you can do for yourself and watch it and think. So, and same thing with the helicopter. It's not something you can do for yourself and go fly yourself. So I've always been involved in an activity that people that truly have an appreciation and desire to do this, they can't do it for themselves. So I can do that for them. And in a similar way, when it comes to luxury properties, listen, I was just in Malibu and I had the absolute honor of meeting the number one agent in Malibu, Chris Cortazzo.
Okay.
And so we were going to look out because my friend potentially was going to, rent one of his houses from him. Chris Cortazzo has a very wonderful hold of real estate.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this right now. Anybody here would be jealous of what this gentleman has.
Yeah.
And he's a beautiful person.
That's
I mean,
cool.
I got to meet him, and you walk up to somebody like that, knowing what they're doing, thinking, well, who's this person going to be? And he was the most incredible person.
That's cool.
The person that people wanted to be around, the person who you knew no matter what, he would do anything for you.
How old is Chris?
I don't know his age.
Yeah,
He was,
yeah.
and for me, I'm at a point in my life, I'm trying to see people as ageless.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I want people to see me as ageless.
Yeah, for sure. That's true. That's
even though
true.
I'm old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the cool thing is he showed us around his house that he had designed and created for him and his family.
Wow.
And Tomas,
I bet that was just ridiculous.
it was so astoundingly beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still just in love
It's
with
the
it all.
finest of any material that you could think of. Right?
What he's created in his personal property and this new office that he's building, it's just unbelievable.
That's cool.
And his relationships out there, what he's done in his market is what anybody would want to do in their market.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody to follow or watch,
That's the guy. What's it say his name again? So,
Chris Cortazzo.
and what is that? His Instagram? Same thing? Is he big on Instagram? I would imagine he probably is.
I didn't look too much into it because again, I'm always trying to find the essence.
Yeah.
What is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Right. What could I take from this person?
Yeah.
What could we do differently?
Yeah.
His artwork, everything was just truly that of luxury.
That's cool.
And so listen, we're sitting there, we're at his house, we're staying in a beach house in Malibu. I remember, at one point we were staying in this gorgeous house in the Palisades, Bel Air. And so the thing is I've seen luxury in a level that I don't know that most have.
Right.
And what's really crazy is when you see the $10 million house in Bel Air and across the street is a $100 million house. We go to the Dominion and we think there's a big difference between 1.5 and 3 million. Guess what?
Yeah.
10 million, 100 million.
Yeah.
And by the way, those aren't gated communities.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just drive
right
right
up
into there. Yeah.
Yep.
And so what I would say is because of this, I've gotten to understand luxury in a way that I don't know that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Because we've lived in these houses. At one point I know Ryan bought Howie Mandel's house on Point Dume.
Okay.
And he was moving for another house on PCH. It was, just absolutely beautiful, right? And so Ryan moves into this house, and at that point, my wife was still dancing. He was going through a situation where he was getting divorced, and so that was kind of like our bachelor pad.
Yeah.
Was this incredible house.
Yeah.
Fully furnished. So all of that.
That's so wild.
You want to know something? Like the cleanest house you've ever seen.
I bet it's Howie Mandel.
It was so beautiful. It was so pristine. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
What's interesting out there is you can buy a house 1 year for $7 million and then sell it in a year for $9 million, sell it another 2 years for $14 million. So it's a completely different market.
Way different.
But
yeah,
this is the thing is for me is when I was doing the helicopters and I was seeing this, I'm one of those people who, as you know, I didn't come from a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to know that everybody can achieve some sort of excess, some sort of luxury in their life. And we do.
Yeah.
The ones that I saw created it and had an excess of wealth and real estate and abundance and cars and all of those things. And I got to see it all.
That's cool.
And to be a part of it and sign the contracts for those zeros.
Yeah,
all those zeros.
That's well. So what is the biggest takeaway from seeing, wealth at that level? The biggest takeaways from seeing some of the biggest business deals at that level. Obviously, your buddy Ryan. What do you think is your biggest takeaway that you bring to real estate every day?
I think the biggest thing I take away from real estate every day, and Ryan was a big proponent of this, is when everybody walks away feeling valued, you have a great deal.
I like that.
Now, that's not to say some of the best deals aren't people not getting what they want, but the best deals are that which you can walk away from and everybody got what they want.
Yeah.
How do you make sure everybody gets what they want? Well, it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about timing. Sometimes it's about being able to stay longer. Sometimes it's about, so it's just making sure that you can try to satisfy everybody as much as humanly possible. Sometimes people need out.
Yeah.
They're willing to take this amount because they have a timeline that's more important, and they've created enough that it's not as important for them to have a heyday at this place in their life in which the other person gets that thing that they need. It's funny. You're there to facilitate the absolute best working out for everybody. And you take the ego out of it too, right?
Which is hard. For agents, it's hard.
It is, but it's also the most simple thing because it's a light switch.
Yeah.
You turn it off.
Yeah.
Right? It's not personal.
It's not, that's 100%. If agents learn more of that though, I think it would help. Yeah. Don't you agree? Right? What was the easiest way for you to figure out how to turn that off?
Well, I mean, I've been trying to turn it off my whole life.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is when I was on that Broadway stage, I didn't think it was me that got me there. Well, maybe I did at some point, but I told you the story before.
But you figured it out.
Is I had the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
I was just an audience member. However, my seat was on stage.
Yeah.
And it was given to me by something bigger than me. I know I never wanted to be on Broadway. That wasn't my thing, but my grandmother wanted me to. She had passed away before. And then all of a sudden I started getting these auditions for Broadway. Wow. And so it's interesting what one's prayer does for another.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because that was a prayer that she had, but that you weren't necessarily thinking about. Isn't that interesting? That's interesting. Now, coming back a full circle, ballet and the discipline, how are you bringing that discipline into your business at Emerald Haus Group? You've had tremendous success, so congratulations to you and your team. And so how do you pull that in with this mindset of discipline and dance and bringing that into your business?
You know, one thing about dance that's great is you can focus on the things that you're good at and you're going to be better at those. But if you focus on the things that you're not good at and you don't love, that's when you gain real success. And so, you know, what I do is we focus on the harder parts of the business.
Okay.
How are we prospecting? How are we finding leads? We say it's a numbers game. And when I first started, I had a problem because people to me are more than numbers. But the thing is if you don't call enough people, you won't get to talk to enough people. And so the numbers matter when reaching out to find people to bring into your circle, to bring into your camp. And so for us, we're really big on prospecting, building new relationships, and adding value to the relationships that we currently have. Because at the end of the day, same thing when I met Chris Cortazzo, I felt like I'd known him for 50 years. You've got to take away anything that you want and just be there for what you're supposed to be there for.
Yeah. Yeah. And be dialed in. Now, you and your wife, is she part of the real estate too? Does she have her license?
No. Listen, we are partners through life.
Yeah.
And she, hey, Easton, take that picture out.
Yeah.
Restage this, add this here.
Yeah.
But no, she's got the hardest job.
Yeah.
Right? She's taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
And she's raising those kids. Obviously, I'm there in the mornings. I get to see them in the mornings. I get to see them in the afternoons. But, she's got the hardest job.
Yeah.
I tell people a lot of times the reason I'm here is because my wife has freed up my time so that way I can go and make the money.
Yeah.
Therefore, she's really made the money for us.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's that circle. It's you're helping each other. Getting back on this prospecting thing, if you were to tell new agents, because I would imagine when you first started,
I'd love to start day over one right now. I would do it in a heartbeat. Basically, what I would do is I would get on the phone and I'd start making those phone calls. I'd start with expireds first.
Okay.
And then I'd move on to circle prospecting, and then I'd move on to for sale by owners. And I would do that 5 days a week. And then on Saturdays, I'd make sure I called those expireds, because a lot of times agents don't call those expireds on Saturdays.
So you do prospecting on Saturday?
Yes.
Friday and Saturday?
Yes. We'll do expired calls on Friday and Saturday.
Wow. And how many calls would you say you are making a day?
Well, listen, it's all about the number of contacts.
Okay.
It's 20 contacts a day.
20 contacts a day.
Sometimes that can take 147 people. Sometimes it can take 400 people. It's going to depend on the neighborhood, the demographic. Are both people working? Is it a neighborhood where people are kind of they've got their financial stability. Maybe they're retired. Maybe 2 people are home. Maybe 1 person is home.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing.
So, but by contact, meaning you've spoken to somebody, not just a message.
Yeah.
I would imagine, right? Is it 20 contacts a day?
My coach, just say, I do have a coach.
Oh, yeah. Tell me.
Absolutely. So from day one, I've always had a coach my entire life, whether I was in the dance studio or as a pilot or as a real estate agent. You've got to find the people that can help you get what you need for your clients. And so I've had a coach since the day I started.
I love it. Who was your first coach? Is it the same person that you have your coach now?
You know, I had a couple MAPS coach from Keller Williams.
Okay.
And then I finally landed on somebody who his name is, I'm not going to give his name.
Oh, yeah.
But he was a MAPS coach.
Okay.
And then we moved into some different stuff once he parted ways. And so
powerful.
It not just powerful, it's shifted my everything.
Yeah.
And this guy is just unbelievable. And so the thing is he's right for me.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's key. Talk about that. That's really key.
You've got to find the person who's willing to work on those things that you want to excel at. And so for me, it was scripts, dialogues. You know, all the time, Tomas, people come into the office and they say, well, what have you done to become successful? And I say, well, if I gave you a script and you said it to enough people that you could make $1 million a year, would you say this script? And say, yes, of course. Give me the script, and then I'll share them the script. And then you'll hear, well, this doesn't sound like me.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like me. I said, well, maybe you don't sound like a successful real estate agent then. Look, when I went on Broadway, they gave me a large book and it's everything I'm going to say on stage.
Yeah.
They were going to pay me a lot of money at that time for me, which was over $100,000. For me at that time, I was like, this is amazing. As being a ballet dancer and knowing what I made my first year, that was amazing. You think I looked at him and said, I don't sound like an Irish ballet dancer? No. I went to a dialect coach. I got my accents perfectly, and I sounded like an Irish ballet dancer every single night on stage. I sound like a Jordington minor.
You figured it out.
I had 3 different dialects. I had 3 accents. I wouldn't have said, it, and guess what? If I had gone on stage and said different words, it sounded more like me. What do you think would have happened to me?
Yeah.
I would have been canned immediately. So this is the thing is you get those scripts and you say those to enough people. They're the ones you're comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
But they have to get to the point of it all. And it's a different one for expired. It's a different one for circle prospecting, and it's a different one for sale by owner. The reason I live for sale by owner to the end is those take a lot of objection handling.
Oh, for sure.
You've got to really be ready because you're going to hear some crazy stuff, some insulting stuff, and you're going to need to be able to handle those objections. My biggest thing is people will handle objection, and then they want to sit there and make sure that it took.
Yeah.
No. You handle it.
Park. You move on.
Yeah. Thank you, Tomas. You handle it and you move forward to the next thing without even skipping a beat, because that beat is the time they're going to go back and reinvestigate what you just said.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, it was always just making sure and even to this day, when it's time to do an adjustment, right? What is the script on adjustments? Okay, well, we'll get it with my coach and we'll figure that out. With the NAR changes, what are the scripts on this?
Yeah.
I want to be able to put people at ease and let them know. And so we do that with scripts, dialogue.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Look professional, right?
Yep.
Look the part.
100%.
Act the part.
Yeah.
Be the part. My director would say to me when I was doing a role, he goes, Easton, stop pretending to try to be this person. It's you as this person.
That's powerful.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. We're going through this period right now, Easton. It's really interesting. We're going through this period as a luxury home magazine where we have hired some coaching, and I've always been had a coach. I've always had this in my mind, and I've had coaches, and this has been different because now we're learning how to sell. We're learning about the art of selling, and not just call and hope, call and wish.
Right.
It's like, no. Do you have a script? Do you have a greeting? Do you have a flow? Do you even have your objections written to where you can actually flow from that greeting right into an objection and have this all written out? And so we started doing this, and it's so interesting because once you get into this flow of scripting and once you get into this idea of objection handling, you start to realize is that you move from being an amateur to being a professional.
Yeah.
And someone like yourself, You went from amateur, from a standpoint of amateur of dancing, to a professional role, but all of that was done with coaching, with scripting, with training, with discipline, and yet we get into real estate and we go, "Oh, we don't need any of that."
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you reach a level of success, and all of a sudden, those are the things that start going first. But those are the things that made you.
Yes,
and that's why the plie is so important. You're never not doing the plie.
Yeah.
Before you go on about your day. It's the same thing here as my calls when I first started, they were atrocious.
Yeah.
My scripts were atrocious. It took me some displeasure to realize that I needed to do what my coaches were saying.
Yeah.
See, I don't want to ask for an email. They say, why? I said, because I wouldn't give out my email. Like, not everybody's like you.
Yeah.
You're thinking from your standpoint, and what you have is you have so many people with so many different opinions. So I started asking.
Yeah.
80% of people I asked for would give it to me. And I was flabbergasted.
You're like, why are they doing this? Because they're not you.
Yeah. And then you realize you have to do what you're told to do. And if you're not going to tell yourself what to do, then find somebody who can tell you what to do.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is it's a model, right?
Yeah.
If I make this many phone calls, I get this many appointments, I get this many listings, I get this many sales.
Yeah.
You can quantify that. I can't quantify sitting on phone duty.
Yeah.
How many people are going to call me today? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can quantify the paid leads, but then when you have to make 4 times of what you spend on it, every time you quantify that, you really take those margins and start running a fine line.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get quality leads?
Yeah.
You make them.
Yeah.
You make them.
And you make them by picking up the phone.
That's exactly.
And getting a script. I love what you said though. You said something very clear that I hope agents that are listening to this, and if I don't care if you're an agent, I don't care if you're in lending, I don't care what phase of the business in real estate in, if somebody handed you a script and you could make $1 million with that script, would you use it? Everybody says yes.
Every day.
And then when you tell them the script, they all go, I don't think that'll work. That's not me. It's so true.
Well, they'll try it for 3 days or a week. And the thing is this isn't immediate. I'll tell you what, I last year took a listing from one of the first people I called in the first year. It took me 7 years to get this listing.
Okay.
I called him, horrible script, got his information. They stayed in my database. I'm standing at school one day and this person says, oh, my name's so-and-so. I said, I'm Easton.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Like these people aren't going to remember you most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're making that many contacts, I found that I'm not going to sit there and call them every quarter. It's just not going to happen, but they're going to be in my database. But the great thing is, we rekindled our understanding that we knew each other. I showed them emails that I sent to them.
Yeah.
And then I listed their house a few months later.
That's so cool.
That's 7 years.
7 years later.
7 years. So this is the thing is
I love it.
Just get on the phone and start connecting people. But this thing is, you're interrupting people's days.
Yeah.
You're barging in through their door.
Yeah.
I've always said when I make a phone call, I'm not calling them on the phone. It's as if I'm there with them.
Yeah.
I want to be able to reach through the phone the same way Robin Williams reached through that door and say, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this today, or is today not a good time?
Yeah.
Let me call back at another time. I always made sure that prior to my phone calls, I prayed to know that I should say what I am led to say. And look, it's a numbers game and you don't want to be on the phone for over a certain period of time.
Yep.
But there's going to be some people that you're going to hear it in their voice that they need to talk to somebody today.
Yep.
And you need to, if you're going to intrude in somebody's house, you need to be prepared to talk to them and meet them where they are.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't result in anything but a really wonderful conversation between two people.
Yeah. Which can be beautiful.
Thomas, we're here for each other.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's all there is.
Yeah.
If you look around, we're 99.9% the same.
Yeah.
That other percent is our individuality, but we all want love. We all want relationships. We all want success. We deep down. And so we have to offer that to one another in any small helping that we can.
I love it. I love that. So final takeaway. And thank you for being here. I love this. This was such a great conversation. And if a book that you've read, what are you reading right now? What have you read? Like if you had a book that you're like, it's the one you give away the most, what is it?
I mean, listen, for me, it all comes back to spiritual things have always helped me the most.
Okay.
And I tell you why. If somebody writes a book they create the problem, they create the solution, and then they sell it to you. They'll put you into these categories, and then they'll sell you how to overcome these categories. And it's wonderful, and they're very helpful.
Yes.
It's very cool. And I'm not saying this for every book. I'm saying for me, I go back to Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy in the Bible.
Yeah.
I put these two things together, and it allows me to understand everything that I'm going to need to in my daily life as a human being.
Science and Health?
Science and Health with Key to the Scripture.
I love it. Okay. I love it. Science and Health with Key to the Scripture. I've not heard of that one. That's the first.
It's life-changing, Tomas.
Yeah.
Even one page will change your life.
I love it. I'm in. I'm all in. I'm going to get the book.
Yeah.
All in.
No, I'll bring you a book. I have copies at home. I will bring you one.
Well, that'd be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. Easton, thank you for being, what's the best way, thank you for being on TM3 Impact. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to list, buy a home?
Listen,
how can they get a hold of you?
I've got the easiest number. It's 512-995-5555.
Oh, that was like slick.
We've got a page called the Emerald Haus Group.com.
Yeah.
House spelled Haus. So
okay.
EmeraldHausGroup.com. And you can see all of our featured listings. And we've got some beautiful listings right now.
Anything coming up on the market that you're excited to talk about? Any new listings?
Listen, we've got a lot of great luxury products in Vintage Oaks, in Canyon Lake. And so what I would say is we do have some wonderful stuff coming up, but look and see what we have. With these interest rates getting better and these people have been wanting to sell, go and look at those.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think today at 2:00, the Fed is supposed to make the announcement. We're going to probably, after this podcast, we're going to know what happened.
We're going to know if it was a good day or the best day.
That's right. Easton, thanks again for being on the show, my man.
Appreciate you.
We'll talk soon. Take care.